So I was finally officially allowed to change my name to the name that I want to use, which is Jackie, because now I'm actually able to use that name because it's a great name. It's one of my favorite names. It has much more significance to me than Annabelle, because Annabelle has nothing to do with my family. I don't have any family members named Annabelle. My birth name was after my grandfather, and this is my grandmother's name. I could have also gone with Dorothy.
Metas.
I don't want to go with Dot, and I also want it to be a French name.
Sweet.
I go really hardcore when picking names, even for online stuff. Like abrogated birthright was a reference to the concept within anti-trans circles of male socialization, and also a reference to the concept of giving up male privilege, which I never had. I had fake male privilege, and then I have trans women privilege, which basically the only thing about that is I get representation in media.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's the only form of advantage that we have over any other group of trans people, is we get represented in.
Hello and welcome to the Damn I Forgot Octopus podcast. Build this podcast with our own
It's been a while, has it not? This is Cosmo, and I would like to welcome you back to our personal sea world where any topic is open to discussion. Trigger warnings for this episode include sexual abuse, rape, homophobia, transphobia, and violence towards people of the LGBT community. Please be a responsible listener. On that note, I would like to welcome you to join us for episode 9, LGBT, Porn and Prison.
By the way, I have now decided that it's a good idea to start actually going by my full name rather than by my nickname, my middle name. My name is Jacqueline, commonly referred to as Jackie, and Anne is actually my middle name. So.
Well, there it is.
Yep. So what are we going to be talking about first?
We discussed housing and employment and healthcare last time. And we also wrapped up some more about Dallas Buyers Club.
Because we're never done with the rage never ends.
We talked about Harry Potter. We talked about, we even mentioned chasers and what chasers were.
Chasers.
We also...
Don't chasers, actually.
Do not chasers.
Don't do it.
We also talked about discrimination against asexuals. Oh, and aromantics, and how they're excluded from LGBT often.
One of the interesting things that we have to look at when we're talking about asexual people is that it's pretty difficult to figure out that you're ace or aro. Well, because for other people who have, for allosexual people, they have, this realization at some point. Oh, that person looks sexy. I wanna bang that person, or I want to date that person. Whereas for ace people, there's no realization like that, because it's the absence of romantic attraction or sexual attraction. You see everybody else around you looking at people like that, and you're like, I've never looked at anybody that way. And one of the issues with that is sometimes you try to pretend that you've felt that way about people, and you try to go along through your life like that because that is what you've been raised to believe you're supposed to do. And that can lead to some issues because, that's not fun. Oh, and one of the other issues with that is that's kind of tied into this sort of being raised in this very heteronormative society where, number one, you're raised to be allosexual. You're raised to have sexual attraction and romantic attraction. But number two, you're not just raised to have, like, any kind of sexual attraction. You're raised specifically to have heterosexual attraction.
And still feel shame about it.
Yeah, and so
No matter what.
you feel shame about, like, you have these issues with finding out who you are because you're taught, oh, this is the way that everybody is. Nobody's any different from this. You can't be any different from it, and if you are, there's something wrong with you. So you try to, like, kind of pretend for a while. No, I'm straight. That's me. And then you figure out, nope, not quite how it works. You can't go through your life pretending you're straight. That's just a recipe for disaster.
Well, if I can just keep this up for the rest of my life, then no one will suspect a thing.
Yeah. And
And then get 10 years into a happy marriage with 2 kids, and then you think,
no.
oh, wait a minute.
oh, son of a bitch. But
that
that particular problem, the one with being raised in a very heterosexual society, is something that you see with young lesbian girls a lot. Is they tend to identify as either hetero or bi for a very long time before they figure out that they're actually gay.
I think we discussed this earlier
Yeah.
in reference to compulsory attraction to men.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did?
Yeah, it was one of the earlier things. I think it was like the first episode we were talking about.
Yeah, we were.
Compulsory heterosexuality in reference to young lesbians
yeah,
identifying
okay.
first as bisexual and then later as lesbians.
And you would think I'd know it. I've heard it like 4 times. But,
Well, so back on topic. So what do we have now?
we
to
had
talk
planned.
about?
Okay, we had just like the lighting's gone. We planned to talk more about healthcare, talk more about a culture built around heteronormativity.
Yeah, it's heteronormativity.
And man, my handwriting's so bad. Yeah, fetishism and the porn industry.
Oh.
It's gonna be a passionate topic. I can
Yeah,
tell.
that's gonna be fun.
Police
'cause-
brutalization,
Oh yeah.
and then
Oh my God,
I had a
just
few
remember
things, but
sticker
they're not
I saw
listed.
once upon a time that was like Seattle PD. It was was it Seattle PD beat up my transgender ass, and all I got was this sticker.
Wait, what the heck?
I saw that at a rally one time.
Okay, so what do you want to start off with, Klaus? I think we should let you
Let's
choose.
start off with police brutality.
Okay,
Okay.
I guess.
Let's
yeah,
start
I
off
guess.
with the sad topic. So one of the major issues that we have, being trans or really kind of being any minority is that you do have to be wary around people who are in authority, because people who are in authority can abuse their powers because of their own personal stigmas against certain people groups. We are going to preface this by saying, obviously, not every police officer is bad. Obviously, most police officers are good. However, there are bad ones, and that does cause us a great bit of worry because we don't know if the police officer that we're interacting with is going to be good or bad.
Disclaimer done. All right, let's throw some shade.
Yeah, basically.
So long as we're talking police and basically law enforcement, first of all, how we deal with transgender people and, of course, also gay people when we're putting them into things like holding cells or into jails or prisons, there's a whole series of just bullshit things that happen.
Yeah.
And that's basically the description. There's a bunch of bullshit things that happen. And this is obviously mostly a transgender issue because gay things happening in prison is not something we're entirely unfamiliar with. Most of the time, it's not exactly the kind of gay things we're normally associating with. Of course, saying that prison rape is a thing that happens, which of course it does. I can't believe I didn't preface this by saying there's gonna be warning for rape, but like, whatever.
Oh, we're gonna have that on the first episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
You realize this? We have a huge trigger warning.
It's
on
actually
the first episode, and
be
it's gonna be
content
pages long.
yeah, it's actually gonna be in the show notes too.
Okay.
It's different for each episode too, so.
Yay.
Remember what I was saying. So there is a huge prison discrepancy between what we're talking about when we're talking about gay people in prison and we're talking about people who, God, I don't want to say that this is homosexual rape, but it kind of is, but it's not. Men
People
being
who use it, generally though it's used as a sort of power play.
Yes,
almost.
it's
not gay. It's
domination. It's
Yeah,
what a teen boy means when he says, "I totally raped you" in that video game where he kicked his male friend's ass. Being gay in prison, being actually gay, is something that makes you a target. Committing gay acts is not necessarily that thing, though. So, homosexuality in a prison situation, especially among men, is a very touchy thing. And it's basically...
Okay, can we use a different word there?
What do you... Oh, God. Self, why did you do that?
is an issue where we should tread lightly.
Yes. No. God damn it.
How is tread lightly?
Lighten the loafers.
Oh,
There you go.
Son of a...
Well, we both do them, so... Let's talk about literally
We
anything
should be
else. Let's just transfer
careful. We should be
completely.
careful about how we approach that subject.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from talking about homosexual acts in prison to talking about the stuff that trans people go through in the prison system.
Or before they even get there.
Yeah.
Well,
One of the, sorry, if I can just preface
go
this,
for it.
one of the things that trans people have to worry about, even just walking around, is that police officers will stop them, particularly trans women, and assume that they are sex workers.
that's definitely a thing that happens, and it's really annoying. And of course, as soon as someone is assumed to be a sex worker, if that person is arrested under the guise of being a sex worker, or is then brutalized in that situation, then that always results in media coverage or any other kind of official report that misgenders that person.
Yay.
Always wonderful. And in the event that this person is arrested, this person is often also arrested as a man in this case. Because it's, oh, well, you're just in drag and you're a prostitute. That's just how things are happening, I guess.
Yeah, which is not to say that the places where this sort of stigma against trans women comes from, but the issue is it's definitely not good for trans women who are just walking home to be mistaken for sex workers by police, because generally that form of sex work that is done on the street is considered to be illegal. These trans women are not doing anything illegal. They are walking home. Okay, anyway. So, yeah, trans women can be arrested, and if they're involved in any situation where there's illegal activity, even if they're being assaulted, which, by the way, trans women tend, and even trans men, have a much higher rate of assault than pretty much any other people group compared to their population.
Well, both of the statuses involved with being trans, both as a man and as a woman, incite male violence.
Yeah.
And for trans women, this means that people are like, "Hey, I'm attracted to that lady. Oh, that lady's actually a man. Now I'm ticked off, and I feel like I've been emasculated because I'm attracted to a man. So I'm gonna beat you up." And then when it comes to trans men, these are sometimes people who are perceived as being women who are then like, no, I'm not. I'm a man, and I'm also, by the way, not remotely interested in you because you're a jerk. and this is also something that happens to lesbians when someone is in a position to be denying the attraction of a man, that person is now also inciting violence.
And that's not a good position to be in. And one of the issues with that is then if you try to get the police involved as a trans person, you can have issues with the police where they just don't help you. That's happened in the past. Like, where they just either don't respond to the call or... Anyway, so bad things happen to trans people in the legal system even before person has already been arrested. Let's move on to the shitty stuff that happens there.
Holding, jail, and prison. Yay!
Wait, yeah. Guys, we're clapping.
Also,
Unless we're clapping for someone.
yeah. Also, trans women do tend to have a fairly high rate of incarceration among the people group that they're a part of. So that's bad.
I am suddenly remembering an episode of Criminal Minds. I think that was in Mexico. If I'm remembering this correctly, like, oh God, it was requested that the precinct bring in a bunch of, like, anyone that they could remember being arrested for sex crimes. And, of course, what they meant was anyone who's been convicted of a violent sexual assault. And what they got was a bunch of sex workers there who were just very confused as to why they were there and also terrified that they were going to be put into the Mexican prison system. So, yeah, that's nice.
Anyway, let's get back on topic.
No, I refuse to get on topic. I must talk about Criminal Minds.
We are going to get sued.
Nah, we won't.
That's fine.
They don't give a
Anyway.
shit about us.
Matthew Ray Gomez
They
is
don't.
really cool.
We don't have a big enough audience. Got like what, 3 people in a shoelace?
I think as soon as if we're talking about something in a comparative manner, I'm fairly certain that falls.
They can only sue us for libel, but
I guess,
mean,
we
but
didn't-
what you're saying is true, so they can't really, you know.
So
leave
is there
off?
any topic that we can quickly cover?
We left off. Where did we leave off at?
So how they're dealt with in jail, and when they're being booked.
So, yeah.
So technically, it's illegal for any police officer to refer to you with pronouns or a name that you do not identify with, even if it's on your legal identification. Like, you say you're a woman, you have to be put into a holding cell of women. You say you're a man, you have to be put into a holding cell of men. I have no idea how it works for non-binary people. I assume we're just so, like...
No,
we're
non-binary
hopefully-
people can go free. That's
Yeah, like,
non-binary
we can't be
privilege.
arrested.
You
'cause
can't
there's
be
nowhere to put
arrested
us.
because we don't have a holding cell for you.
I would have to guess
We
that
have a special
non-binary
holding
people-
cell in the teacher's lounge.
If I had to
that goes
guess,
into-
we'd all be put with probably with women. Just if I was someone who was making the decision of whether or not to book a non-binary person of any sexual assignment, I would probably just put them with the women, because putting any kind of gender variant person with a group of cis men who have been recently arrested is a really bad idea.
Yeah, the worst that could happen probably is like yelling or, demeaning things when put into the women's holding cell. But
Well, you
when
probably
put
get
into
beat
the-
up, but
yeah.
hopefully not.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, there's still high chances of that
Well,
happening.
you're put into the
But-
when you're in a jail, like a county style jail, like not a prison, but like a jail, and you're in there and you've just been booked. You're not really in this situation where you're going to end up being beaten up unless you have other people inside your cell. Like, you don't really have a jail yard, which is something that you have in a prison, which you do have to look for. Also, going off of that, like the non-binary people being booked in jail, what prison do they go to?
That is another really good question, and
We don't know the answer, do we?
I don't think we do. At this point, anything we say is postulation, because I mean, like, I theoretically, for science could go get arrested, but I don't want to do that. So
Let's.
I have to find some, like,
Klaus,
probably some, like,
you
DMAP
need-
non-binary person to get arrested with me to see what happens to us.
You need to go kill someone.
I'm gonna go kill a man. I'm gonna.
I
Must be a
was
funny
looking
dog.
on Google, and at the very least on the first page, I can't find anything on
first page.
non-binary people being arrested.
Have you checked the non-binary Wikipedia?
No, not yet.
It's exactly like normal Wikipedia, except it's for non-binary people. It's our version of Black Twitter. I'm tired.
Anyway, so yeah, that's one of the issues with jail. One of the issues with booking is that more often than not, the people who are booked into jail are booked in by their birth names and their genders that they were designated with at birth, and basically no are given that they're trans.
It's illegal for that to actually happen.
Yep, it is.
Which is interesting, because when something like that happens, and if someone's rights were to be violated in this sense, how is this person going to be able to, like, stand up for themselves? We're going to be able to hire a lawyer who's going to be able to say, well, when my client was booked, you didn't listen to the fact that she was a girl. So, like, just saying here, you done f***ed up already. And this is something really requires a lot more research.
It really is, because, you know, none of us have been arrested.
You know, we can, like you said, we can fix that. I
For
mean,
$500, I will go get arrested for science.
Let's skip
police
jail until
part.
we've done more.
We need to research.
do you want to mention
this.
anything about the military?
Yes, I'm ticked off that I can't join the Air Force. That's my basically the extent of my
Oh.
being angry about the military. I'm like, God, literally, like, why?
So
But your
why?
eyes though.
Hmm?
Is that why?
No, it's not, because transgender people aren't allowed in military service unless, of course, your commanding officer's chill. If your commanding officer has some chill, then, like, yes.
So transgender people are not allowed to participate in the Air Force?
In any kind of military service.
Well, there was that one trans lady who was she was a captain.
Allow me to articulate this again. You are not supposed to, but if your commanding officer has some chill, they just conveniently won't say anything. However, if you are already
She was out.
Yes, if you're already out and you try to apply for military service, you won't get accepted. Unless I'm completely misremembering that, in which case, just ignore everything I'm saying.
That might
but
have been changed.
if that would
with-
be very interesting. But if it don't ask, don't tell only applies to gay people.
I know. I'm saying I think it might have been changed because I remember hearing on the trans subreddit about a couple of trans people who have been joining the military.
We
so
need to fact check this.
We have found some articles that may help to clarify the status of transgender individuals in the military. Please refer to the notes of this episode for some links. Thank
we're
you.
gonna have to scrap all of this because we don't know.
God,
Let's
This is us
We never-
bull pretending we know stuff.
if we knew we were going to be talking about ahead of time more accurately, we wouldn't have to do this.
We should.
That was a burn
Like, it's
aimed
just like-
at me because that is my job, and I have completely failed everyone every single time.
the most research we've ever done was when
we did it on the spot.
the most okay
Like
the
on our
most-
phones in the
the
middle
most
of the podcast.
research that we've ever done was the one for the Chozo. The couple of times where I've looked up stuff on the spot, and when Tracy did the research for that church
And we
in,
scrapped that.
Egypt, and we cut that because we didn't have enough
wait.
information, and because everything was in Arabic.
Wait, you forgot one. You did. Fetishism in the porn industry.
The porn industry.
If you want to talk about that, then
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
kind of the point of the porn industry.
No, the point is that you look at it and you want to f it, but you can't. That's the point.
It's aesthetic.
Well, if you want to go
Porn
ahead and...
aesthetic. Fuck.
I think we could talk about that, because that's one of the pretty big issues in that industry, is that as trans people we are fetishized. We're like, people look at us as more sexual, and that's one of the things. Like, if you're out in public, you have this fear of like cis guys just hating trans women because, you know, like, oh, you're a woman, but I viewed you as a woman, but now I view you as a man because of the genitals you were born with. And the issue with that is, if you go online or pretty much anywhere, you find out, yes, that's a pretty major issue, but these same people are looking up trans porn with slurs that are in the name that I would prefer not to say. It's the...
I'm sure
do
we can
not
use our
like-
imagination.
I do not like the T word.
I'm pretty sure it's obvious to our listeners.
Yeah.
If
if
not,
it's
I'm sure you
not-
can figure it out, you know?
I don't like that word. I'm only okay with it if it's being used to refer to car parts. Even then, if you could please say transmission. It's,
I don't think I've ever heard anyone call the transmission anything besides the transmission. And if so, what the fuck is wrong with mechanics? What drove you to do that?
every mechanic and everybody who loves cars, which is my dad's side of the family.
I have to kink shame all the mechanics? God damn it!
Anyway, so yeah, there's this really big kink on the internet, and it's one of the biggest searched things is porn with transgender people in it. And it's not nice because you're sexualized, and that's something that you see as really any sort of queer person other than generally ace people. Generally, ace people aren't sexualized in that sense.
Well,
but
if you,
see,
I'm sure you can figure out a way. You know, asexual person. Well, technically, this is not something. It's not. You don't typically see the label asexual person tries sex for the first time, discovers they like it, and is no longer asexual. But basically, that's also a thing.
oh yeah, that's the entire concept of virginity is terrible.
It's like, oh, young scared virgin is intimidated by sex, but has sex and now loves it and is a total slut. That's an entire porn subgenre.
Yeah, that is.
So there it is.
right.
No one's safe. No one is safe. Everything is awful. I'm moving to, like, I don't know, the moon.
No, because then there'll be a whole subsection for that. Anyway,
Gays on the moon. That's the news. That's our new porn subsection.
No, but seriously, we do have an issue in the community where generally straight people sexualize us. Biggest example of that is lesbians.
yeah,
are
lesbians are the biggest target of that.
Excessively sexualized, particularly online, but you know, particularly in real life as well, by straight cis men. And that is a pretty big issue because, you know, lesbians' sexualities are not in any way directed toward straight men, nor are they directed toward gay men, nor are they directed toward straight women. They are directed toward, you guessed it, other lesbians.
A radical concept indeed.
And you have that, and then you have the entire subsection of straight girls who fetishize gay people, gay men through yaoi.
Can we not talk about that for the love of God? I feel kind of nauseous, like, just thinking about it. Like, I'm used to the whole, like, straight men obsessed with lesbian women thing, but this, I was still, like, 14-year-old girls are killing me. I mean, at the same time, they're minors, but, like, well, technically the yaoi industry is an adult thing in Japan. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm honestly, my mind is still stuck on gays on the moon being a porn subgenre. Like, I'm participating in this
Anyway,
conversation. My
okay,
mind's like,
so
what if there were gays on the moon?
So can we get back on topic?
but like, there's
No,
nothing
I'm
to do
thinking
up
about
here
gays
but
on
to
the
start up
moon.
the porn industry.
So, and this issue does extend to trans people, where you have people fetishize them. And one of the scary things is it's not just straight people who fetishize trans people.
Nope.
You also have gay people who are referred to as chasers, and I believe we've talked about this earlier.
He did.
But you have gay men who go after trans women, do not view them as women, really don't even view them as people, and basically treat them like shit. And then you have gay women who basically do the same thing for trans men, although that's not talked about as often.
No, because we don't tend to talk about it. What will happen here is like there'll be cis lesbians who will say like, oh well, I'm a lesbian, I identify as gay, and then they'll also date trans men, but only trans men along with women, and they're like, oh well, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And that's not so much a chaser thing as it is a well, it doesn't count thing. Which is very annoying.
Which is, it's not this concept of particularly chasing trans people, but it is completely invalidating trans people and saying you're not actually your gender, you're not actually a girl, or you're not actually a guy, and I'm going to completely view you and treat you as if you were gender completely different from the one that you are.
As if you were your genitals.
And that's also
thing.
something that you find with non-binary people is they have that issue where when they're dating somebody, quite often those people will date them in a way to where they don't view the person as that gender. I'm not saying obviously that happens all the time or that even happens very often, but I am saying that is something that does happen.
Well, absolutely. And it's really strange. Like, I've had questions people ask me before, like, well, why are you only really romantically ever interested in other non-binary people or other trans people? And the answer is because I'm really tired of cis bull getting involved in my relationships, because I don't want to have to play this game with someone as I'm deciding whether or not to date them of, do you actually see me as something other than a vagina? You know, because that's something I'm really interested in finding out here. It's on the top of my list of interested things. It's like, yeah, okay, you don't support Donald Trump? Okay, great. Second question, do you see me as a vagina? No, yes, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, no, good. Okay, we can move on from here.
If they see you as, you really need somebody to see you for you, because that's the entire point of dating somebody, is to be able to have a connection with them. And if they take away that ability for you to have a connection with them because they don't see you as who you are, you can't date them. That's just, it's not gonna work out in the long run because they're dick bags.
I hope you are finding our relentless babble intriguing. If not, it's just as well, because we enjoy ourselves anyway. Cosmo Cavanaugh, Jackie Beaudoin, Kyle Mitchell, Tracy Medcalf, and our featured guest, Klaus McHendry, are still working hard to finish this series for you, and we are nearing its completion. Send your questions, comments, or contributions to geometricoctopus@gmail.com, as well as your own stories along the lines of this topic. Thanks for listening. We hope you return yet again to soak up some of the fun we are having. We will be back soon with more.